how I encourage myself in tough times. This is Graciously Gloria, and thank you for joining today. Maybe we're having different challenges. Perhaps it could be health challenges. Stressful things are happening in this world right now, and perhaps you have a job that is also stressful, and maybe you're dealing with challenges within your family, such as challenges with your children or other family members, or you might even be taking on a new role, perhaps as a caretaker of your parents. Menopause can be challenging. Menopause really was challenging for me, especially perimenopause, and I really didn't feel like myself. So in this video, I'm going to talk about different challenges come our way and how do we overcome these different challenges? What are different ways that I encourage myself? And I'm hoping these tips and suggestions will be helpful for you if you're going through some challenging time. And perhaps you're not. Maybe everything's going really well for you, and that is great. But life itself, is a journey with ups and downs. So we are all going to reach challenging times one way or another at different periods and phases of our life. So we really, it's important to think about different ways that you can get yourself out of like different funks and just different ways you can make yourself feel better and equip yourself to take on the challenges. So first, what I always do is just remind myself, I've made it through tough times before. So just acknowledging that and thinking back, kind of ruminating on what difficulties you've gone through in the past. And for example, so I was a single mom for a while and I went through a divorce, and that was very difficult and challenging, especially for myself and my kids. So I needed to be a good support system for my kids as well, during that time, and also taking on a role as a single mom, which I really, to be honest with you, felt like I was a single mom a lot of my marriage prior to that. But that's a whole nother story that I may get into at some point or not. I'll kind of see. But just acknowledging, how you got through those and that you can weather the storm and things will get better. And just reminding yourself of that hope, to continue always to have hope. And that's so important. And then the other thing is really focusing on what is going well. And perhaps you might even want to write that down. Sometimes I'll do that as well, just like what is going well at this moment. Maybe certain things feel like, gosh, they really are falling apart. And it kind of feels overwhelming, right? These various different situations. And just remind yourself what is going well and what are you grateful for at that time really takes you off of that negative headspace that you may be in and focusing on the good. And there's a Bible verse that talks about that. Whatever is, I can't think of all the words right now, but there's a Bible verse that talks about focusing on the good and filling your mind with good thoughts is really the basis of that. And, focusing your mind on that can be very helpful. And also remind yourself that positivity and optimism can be hard to maintain. I get sometimes called toxic positivity, that I'm extra positive. And I don't really know if it's toxic, but for me, it is a coping skill that I use. I try to focus on what's good, and it really gets my mind off what is not going well, because that's a coping skill that I have. Just focusing on what's good. It's not that I'm denying what the difficulty of a circumstance may be or what steps I need to take to make a situation better. It's not that, but it's really more focusing on what is good, what is going well. And I also just like to have a happy life and be a happy person. But I have emotions like everyone else. Now, some people who know me well will say, like, I tend to just always have a smile on my face and not be sad. But you know what? I get sad like everybody else. Having emotions is completely normal. That's just being human. You're going to get sad. You're going to be happy. You're going to be angry. You're going to feel all kinds of emotions. Now, me personally, I tend to feel emotions pretty strongly. So I had to learn, at a young age, really how to cope with strong feeling emotions and what could I do to, If I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling extra sad. I don't like to stay in that sad space. If I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling extra stressed. I don't like to stay in that stress space. And I'd like to take action. So taking some kind of action also helps. And I would encourage you to do that. For me, just taking that one little small step forward, making some little progress on something makes a difference. Now, I also have kids who have some mental health issues, and I'm really probably not going to go into that right now because I feel like that's their story to tell. But I perhaps may do a whole separate video on parenting and mental health challenges there. So, for example, depression and anxiety. And so that's a challenge in itself if you are dealing perhaps with your own different things that you might be having, like you might be having some of your own depression at a time or your own anxiety. But there's also a clinical level of anxiety. There's a clinical level of depression and anxiety that I had to learn a lot more about to help others around me and be an encouragement and a support system. So, what I want to say about that is, I don't think there should be a stigma about mental illness. It is a challenge that many are faced with, and it's just kind of like some other health challenge. Then you need to go about it and understanding it and understanding actions to take to overcome challenges and to get through it. And so I really do have a lot of empathy for you if you are personally going through a depression or you struggle with anxiety, because there is a lot of help out there and a lot of tools for you. So I would encourage you to seek some kind of help. There are counselors out there. There are different online counselors, for example, and I can put some examples of different ones below of different online resources. But there, if you don't feel comfortable going in person, you could do a virtual visit if that's something that you feel like it would be of value to you. And there is no shame in seeking help. And the other thing I would say about counseling, I have gone through counseling on and off through my years, particularly with some different life circumstances. Like, for example, when my mother died, I went to counseling then. When I was dealing some challenges with my son, I went to some counseling then. When I was going through a divorce, went through some counseling then. So for me, it's been more situational in different life circumstances, but there are some people that just stay in counseling for years, and it can be very, very helpful. Now, I would say it's important to find a counselor that you connect with. And if you don't connect, it's okay to find a different one. And so it's just kind of like finding a good doctor. You'll find a doctor that's really great and you want to stick with them as long as you can, because, somebody who brings value and makes a difference is important. So, but like I said, there's lots of resources. If you don't feel comfortable going to a counselor in person, and perhaps that's something you could benefit from, they also have videos. I will link a person who has some really great mental health related videos out there on YouTube. And she is a counselor, and that might be of interest to you or help to one of your loved ones. But just want to acknowledge that baseline that, I am not a counselor, but I do just want to share with you ideas of things that I have helped, the things that in my life that have helped me encourage and overcome different life circumstances and difficulties. So that's just one of them, just something I want to mention there. Now, some other ideas of different things you can do. I find just getting a change of venue can make a difference. For example, if you've been stuck inside a lot, get outside and get some fresh air. Getting on a walk, just getting a little bit of exercise can elevate your mood. And getting that fresh air is just so important, I think. And even just like 10 minutes, if you could just do 10 minutes, that could make a difference. Then you could work up to like maybe 30 minutes. I know sometimes it's hard to do when it's maybe too cold outside or maybe it's too hot outside, but try to pick a time of day that you could do that. And it even doesn't have to be every day, but just getting that fresh air, I think, really does help. And again, that goes with the line of just a change of venue. If you've been home a lot, just get yourself outside, get yourself into a different circumstance. Even getting yourself around other people is good, instead of just sitting there by yourself ruminating about whatever is challenging you. I also feel like you have a choice on how to respond. And I remind myself that I have a choice of how I can respond. Sometimes I can't change a situation, You only have control over what your actions are and how you respond to things. You can't control what other people do, which is so challenging at times, right? Because we would like to be in charge and be like, I wish this person would act this way in this relationship, or I wish in this work situation, the person would act this way. And it just, life doesn't work that way, unfortunately. And it can be super frustrating to recognize that. But at the same time, empower yourself again and realize that you do have power in the situation. You have power on how you are going to respond to a situation. So reminding yourself of that. And also, if you're finding yourself in extra stress, just letting off some steam and exercising. So like I said, going on a walk would be fabulous. Other ways to exercise, put on some music, some fun dance music, and just dancing around your living room. And that is fun. It could be super fun. I do that all the time. And I'll do that while I'm even like cleaning the dishes because I love to dance. But that like blows off some steam for me. And other people like to lift weights. I have recently gone to the rebounder and went back to jazzercise class, which was super tough and has been super fun. And just that blowing off some steam and exercising, because exercise does release dopamine, and that is a feel-good hormone, and it releases some endorphins as well. So that is just a hormonal thing. It's going to just make you feel better. So exercise is great. Also, self-care, just really kind of taking care of yourself and giving yourself some grace when you're going through difficulties. Don't feel like you need to be perfect. No one's perfect. None of us are perfect. I'm not perfect. It's okay not to be perfect. That's being human, is not to be perfect. I'm a Christian. I believe Jesus is perfect, but none of us are. Okay. And so it's okay. And that self-care. So like I said, that could be some examples for you. Take a nice bath, put a candle out, have a nice cup of tea, sitting down and just relaxing for a moment. I have this also little massage, little gadget thing that I'll put on to give myself a neck and back massage, which is nice. Also, you could give yourself a facial mask. There's different items for a foot mask. I have some different videos out there on different tips for self-care and different items if that is of interest to you, but just to give you, some ideas. Other ways also, you could take some supplements, because just having that good nutrition, eating that extra protein. I have another video too on ways to increase your protein, but just considering taking that care of yourself. What are you eating? And I know that sometimes when people are stressed, and I know in the past I had done this and ate more like junk food, and that actually just didn't made me feel kind of worse, not better. So providing yourself with some good things, perhaps looking at your supplements that you're taking, making sure you're having a good intake of water. And if water is getting kind of boring for you, I have a whole thing on spa water, but just adding basically some different kinds of fruit, or, some fresh fruit to your water to make it more interesting for you to drink your water. And again, just surrounding yourself with some self-care and some grace as well. I mentioned that therapy can help. Talking to a friend, reach out to your friend, see if they're available to chat on the phone. I feel like texting, I don't know. For me, I tend to text more people just to make plans with them, but I like to have a conversation via the phone or in person, and just making plans with a friend, maybe going out to lunch or a dinner, or going to see live music, or just taking a walk around a park with your friend. But I feel like connecting with your friends just really is valuable when you're going through a difficult circumstance. And it gives you opportunity to discuss things with them, or just take a break from all the stress or whatever, and maybe don't talk about it if you don't feel like about it, and just have a fun evening out and think, great, I had so much fun tonight and I'm allowed to have fun. It's great to be able to enjoy your life even when you're going through a difficult circumstance. And to remind yourself that duality, that you can be going through something sad, even let's say you're grieving the loss of a parent, for example. You could be grieving a loss of a relationship. Perhaps you were married and you're going through a divorce, and grieving a loss of a relationship, grieving a loss of a circumstance that wasn't turning out the way you had envisioned it to turn out. And it's okay to be going through that, but at the same time, feeling joy. There is a great book out there, Kay Warren. I used to go to Pastor Rick Warren's, the church, Saddleback Church. Kay Warren is really great, has a book about choose joy. And that is a Christian-based book, but I just think there's a lot of good value in it, even if you're a Christian or not. and that choosing joy, it's a choice to choose joy. And it is like a conscious choice we need to make sometimes when we are feeling sad or angry or upset or all those other, different emotions, that you can choose joy in a circumstance. And that also reminds yourself that you have some power to of choice there. Plan something fun to look forward to. I think that is super important. For me, when I'm going through something difficult, I can think like I can get through this day of work. It's super stressful because I have a fun thing I'm going to do after work, or I have a fun thing I'm going to do this weekend, or I have a fun trip coming up. Whatever it is, but just having something that you're looking forward to. Maybe you're just looking forward to doing something that's one of your hobbies, and that's another idea there, a hobby. Kind of considering what are the hobbies you used to do, what are the hobbies that you're interested in doing that you haven't perhaps had the time for, maybe carving out a little time for yourself to explore a hobby. So many different ideas about there of hobbies. For me particularly, I like to paint. Now, I'm not saying I'm the best painter in the world, but I do really enjoy it, and it does bring me joy to create something. So doing that, perhaps trying to get some paints, or so many different like online classes you could take of people to show you, or just get out and put some paint to paper and just see what you can make. And it just, for me, that brings me a lot of joy. I do watercolor paintings, I do acrylic paintings, and that for me brings me joy. My husband loves music. That's a huge passion and hobby of his, is to work on music. He creates songs, he plays instruments. So perhaps music, maybe singing is of interest to you. You know what? Just sing. You don't have to be the best singer. I love to sing. And I was in choirs in the past, and I'm not going to tout that I'm like the best singer, but I love it. And just blaring a song out and just singing a song that you like. And that could be fun. Singing, dancing. I mean, there's so many things. You could do roller skating, which is like old school. Maybe you did that when you were little. And you might perhaps take out something like maybe knitting, or something. Knitting's of interest to you, or sewing, that might be of interest to you. I took a mosaic class, and that was fun. I could see that picking up as a hobby. It was more challenging than I thought it would be, but taking on a hobby, maybe a new one, or exploring one that you did in the past, and that could help encourage you and lift you up out of some difficulties, and just change your perspective a little bit. And writing things down just to get your thoughts out. So that is something that I also do, and I'll reflect on any actions or changes that I can make. For me, I just put it even in my phone. Perhaps you have a journal that you would like to write in. And it doesn't have to be like some kind of, homework. It doesn't have to feel like some kind of homework assignment where you're like writing in proper sentences with all the punctuation, even though I do that in my text messages. My kids make fun of me for that. But anyways, it doesn't have to be a daily basis. Could just be whenever you want to, but you could start it as a daily basis. You could start it as a habit, like every morning you write in one, or every evening. And that's an idea. And get yourself a pretty looking journal and just writing your thoughts down. Like I said, for me, I sometimes ruminate in my head a lot before I'm going to bed. And to help me fall asleep, sometimes I just open up my notes app in my phone and jot down whatever thoughts I wanted to kind of get out that I didn't get out that day to myself or somebody in some way. And writing that down kind of helps me. And it gives me some perspective there. And like about health, we talked a little bit about exercise. So remind yourself what you can do. And I was having some difficulties this past year, and was diagnosed then with these vestibular migraines. So I get dizzy and have vertigo, and also get migraines. And it was really challenging. And then at the same time, I was having different neck pain. And that was a whole nother thing that I found out what was going on there. And I didn't know if things were related, but they ended up being two different issues. And I kind of had to tackle all of those different challenges and see various different doctors related to this. And it got very discouraging at times, being in different pain and just feeling like I wasn't myself. And so I've been through some other health challenges in the past that I've gone through, and just reminding myself with my health, what can I do? What can I do to feel better? What can I do to get better? For me, it was a combination of doing physical therapy, exercises, looking at my supplements, and I had to go through several different rounds of medication to get through the right medication to help my migraines. And it was really challenging because at one point I was having them almost daily, and Now it's reduced to once about once a week. So still not great. And I would like to be like, it's 0 a week or 0 a month, or even if it was once a month, that would be great. But anyways, it's way better than it was. And so I am focusing on the gratitude of it and focusing what I can do and getting myself better. And so looking at your health, because when your health is challenging, that can feel overwhelming at times when you don't have the answers and you might have to go to several different doctors or go through different treatments. Perhaps you'll need a surgery and then you have to recover from a surgery. You'll need physical therapy or medication or whatever have you. It might be a combination of different things that you might need. So just reminding yourself what you can do to feel better, and that there's hope in feeling better. Just remind yourself that there's hope. Today you may not feel great, but there's always hope that tomorrow you will. Okay, so just reminding yourself that I think is so important when you're going through particularly a health challenge that can be very stressful. And self-talk, I think, is really important. What we say to ourselves, our brains have power. And our brains are really amazing, actually. So I feel like we don't utilize all the things that we can in our brain. I'm sure that I don't. But our brains have power, and the things that we say to ourselves have power. If you keep telling yourself, you know what, this is not going to work out, and this is terrible, and everything's bad, and then it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy in a sense that like sometimes things are bad because you're telling it so bad, and then you kind of make choices on that path, if that makes sense. Now, again, we can't control all these life circumstances, so I'm not just saying the power of what you believe in your head can change all your circumstance, but it certainly can change your perspective, and it can then change your actions that you're going to take to lead you on a better path. So I tend to remind myself of that. Now, there's lots of good ways to do self-talk. One is just to tell yourself nice things. Think to yourself, would you say this kind of talk to a friend? You would never say bad things like that to a friend or a loved one, a person you love. And having that love for yourself and treating yourself with that same kind of love and telling yourself, you know what? You're wonderful. You're awesome. You got this. I literally will say to myself, I'm okay. I'm okay. I've got this. I'm okay. So say those things to yourself. Again, maybe writing it down is good for you. Maybe putting it on a post-it note. I remember when my kids were younger and I felt like they were going through some encouraging times, I literally made a whole bunch of positive post-it notes just with encouraging messages and would put them on the bathroom mirror for them to see. And so maybe they were like, Mom, you always tell me this certain thing and try to encourage me. But I just would want to leave it in a different way. Maybe leave it, in a car for someone. Do those things for yourself. Put it on the mirror for yourself. That's just another idea that you could do for a person too, is just giving them some nice little positive messages. But the self-talk you say to yourself is so important, and considering that you are so of value and so worthy of good and amazing things in your life. Pray. For me, I also, like I said, I'm a Christian, and praying and talking to God helps me a lot. And giving it up to God and feeling like, for you, maybe you do or don't believe in God, but believing in a higher power, and there's something bigger than you, and that you don't have to control it all, and you don't control it all anyways. And so none of us can control it all. And so just praying for me gives me a lot of peace and comfort when I'm going through difficult times. And knowing, for me, I believe that God is out there and God is on my side, and God wants the best and good things for me. And for me, and there's a verse in Romans that God will work all things out for good. And that is like really then to realize it can be difficult, it can be challenging, but how can this situation that I go through work out for good? Maybe it's going to work out for good somehow in your life, or maybe it's going to work out in a way that you can be there for somebody else in the future because of the difficulty that you had gone through. So for me, that's something that I also turn to, that I'm trying to figure out, since being, newer to my YouTube, like what I feel comfortable sharing about my life story. So I'm giving you some of this here today. And So giving you more glimpse into getting to know me. And, one of my life goals is to recognize my blessings and also to be a blessing to others. That's something I pray for a lot. Lord, help me to recognize my blessings and to be a blessing to others. And so that's one of the reasons I started this channel. And I have a video I did recently about like, why did I do this channel? But it's a way for me to feel like I'm giving back and helping inspire others and educate others on what I know and what I've learned. And it's particularly women in midlife have a real passion to help other women. I've raised 2 children and it was a joy and a privilege. And at times, very, very challenging, I would say. But overall, so wonderful. Love my kids. Love my kids. And it's been a huge, huge blessing to be their mother. I mentioned that a little bit that I was in a previous marriage for 20 years, and that presented itself with lots of different challenges at times. And that I was a single mom, which had its own unique set of challenges. And, the buck stopped with me, and I had to figure it all out. And it was like me figuring it all out. And there's no manual about how to be a parent, but I wanted to be a really, really good parent, and I hope I have been. And I'm not perfect, but I really did try to be a very good parent, and I still strive to be the best parent that I can be. And, yeah. And menopause, like I said, menopause presented its own set of challenges. I did a whole video on my menopause journey, and I feel like going through perimenopause, I just didn't feel like myself, and it changes you in so many different ways, emotionally, physiologically, and changes changes, hormonal changes in your system. I went through a big funk, I would say, but I got myself out of it doing a lot of these things that I talked about, and as well as educating myself too on different ways, to approach my menopause journey and different things that could help me. But I hope that this has been an encouragement to you of different things that you can take, because I want you all to be thriving in midlife. And this journey of life can be challenging, but it can also be such a joy, such a joy. And my best wishes to every single one of you. You go and have a great day and take good care of yourself today.